Today we're talking about planning for Christmas starting in July, the month that we're in right now, so that you can make an impact in December and beyond. Because we all know we've all felt the pain when it's right, the month before a holiday. What are we doing for Christmas? What are we doing for Easter? So we think you can start planning ahead and make it an awesome Christmas, both for the people you're serving as well as your team. A win-win-win, as we often talk about here. So I'm excited to jump into it. To get into the Christmas spirit, we really want to know in the chat, let us know what is your favorite Christmas beverage. And actually, if you let us know, one of our chat hosts will be selecting 3 winners for some Starbucks or specialty coffee beans. I'm not really a Starbucks Christmas drink guy. Are either of you, like when the Christmas drinks come out at Starbucks, like you get excited?
I'm going to keep drinking the pour over. So
yeah, there's a coffee roaster in Pennsylvania called Little Amps, and they have a Christmas blend. So if I was winning this, that's what I would want. What are you guys' favorite Christmas beverages?
Eggnog, anybody? I grew up on that.
What did you grow up on?
The eggnog,
eggnog. Yeah, I mean, we love hot cocoa. My teenage daughter makes a mean hot cocoa. She could have her own little hot cocoa truck. It is good. She has all the candy in there. So, but when I was on staff at a church, every year at the annual Christmas staff board Christmas party, I was forced. My job at that party was to make one beverage, and I wanted to give one of the gifts to somebody in the chat who could mention that beverage as their favorite. It's not my favorite, but and it goes to Bria. Wassail. I was forced to make it I had to make this huge tub of wassail, and it had like honey and oranges, and I don't know if it was like a cider of some sort. I could never figure out actually what it was. My job was to keep it stirring it and serve it to everybody. But hot wassail, my mouth is not watering. But
sounds like an insult. That's a pile of hot wassail.
Bria loves the hot wassail, and I think we should give one of the gifts. This is to Bria in the chat for picking wassail.
We'll make sure she gets something, yeah. But yeah, keep dropping them in there if you want. Our chat host will give it away. Or if you're watching the replay, let us know in the comments. We'd love to know what your coffee drink is. Maybe we'll give some commenters some coffee as well. I also was indoctrinated into eggnog the past few years. And actually at my last church in Pennsylvania, I did a live eggnog testing with the worship pastor, but we almost threw up on screen because we drank like 10 eggnogs in the pre-show for online church. So that's just a pro tip. A lot of value right up front on this event. Don't drink 10 eggnogs pre-show for your online church. Maybe do it. That's the post-show. Do it then. Yeah, I'm excited. We're also giving away some awesome stuff as well. We're actually going to be giving away some memberships to the ArtSpeak Creative Community, a free year. So again, if you're here live, especially ask some questions because that's how you'll win. But it has the ArtSpeak Creative Community has a ton of stuff to make sure you're ready for Christmas. It has access to our full Creative Church library, which has a bunch of Christmas concept sermon series graphics, which includes bumper videos. So it's like literally everything. You can just, if it's as simple as you can change the name to Christmas at our church, that's it. Or if you want to customize it, go for it. It's a great resource. There's also a bunch of other templates in there. So with your membership, you get unlimited access to that library, as well as a bunch of other things like ongoing trainings, events like this, workshops with our teams, and community with fellow creatives. So Kirk and Jason, I know you've invested a lot into making that an amazing community, and so has our team. So we would love to see you in there. If you're not a part already, artspeak.com/artspeak-community. The link's in the description. It's hard to say URLs, right? But the URL is in the description of wherever you're watching this, including right now. But yeah, we'd love to see you in there. And if you do want to enter to win, whether you're watching live now or in the next few days, ask a question, and we will be selecting people who ask questions to gift these memberships to. So if you're watching live right now, there's a little blue box. You can ask anytime. Questions about Christmas, church, whatever. Could be personal for us. Could be, ideally about doing Christmas with your church. But ask a question at any time in the Q&A, or if you're watching a replay, leave a comment, and we will maybe be giving you some free membership. So before we jump in, we do want to, we're all dreaming about a Merry Christmas, but we've also probably all had a little nightmare before Christmas. I've had a few working on staff at a church. I'm guessing you guys have too. I'll share mine because mine's top of mind, and then I'd love to hear, at least from one of you. But if you both have one, feel free. But maybe some of you out there can relate who are watching this. I was actually, when I was interviewing for my first communications director role at a church, they very quickly wanted to get me on staff. I'm like, wow, I must be killing it in this interview process. Looking back, I'm kind of wondering if it was more, hey, Christmas is a month away. And for them, like their big thing was photo booths. So I guess the role of director of digital communications actually translated to photo booth expert. Because I spent literally probably 30 out of my 40 hours my first week, which was the week before Christmas. Just a heads up, like tell a church if you're interviewing it, you'll start after the big holiday, not the week before. But I spent a lot of sweat and time setting up photo booths, and honestly, it wasn't that great. But everyone loved it, so that's awesome. So yeah, maybe spread your resources out a bit more there. But that was my little nightmare for Christmas. Do you guys have any fun things?
I probably have two Nightmare Before Christmas church stories. One is a general one, and another more specific. One, as a church planter, man, you launch a church, you get going, and then like Christmas is there. And we launched in the fall, and it was like, oh, and people started saying, what are you doing for Christmas? And it was a big deal. And I did not make a big deal about it. We didn't do much. We didn't have much planned. And I remember we kind of threw something together quickly, and just in general, it's hard to empower people. We've talked about that a lot on here, and we talk about it in the community. If you're not going to plan ahead, which is why we're talking about Christmas in July, then you're going to burn out people. And I remember one person in particular who came to me who was just very frustrated with leading a project that was last minute and didn't want the credit for it because it was not their best work. Because the time wasn't there to allow that person to do their best work. And that's when I started learning the lesson, albeit very slowly. I can either plan ahead or I can burn out people. And so here we are, though, in July. I was on staff as the communication director at a very large church. And I think one of the nightmares there was just complicated. It was just, I was thinking, let's make things simple. Let's keep it streamlined. Let's make it family. Let's do whatever is the, easiest return on investment. There was some others that had just differing vision, and they wanted lasers, and they wanted to be able to touch their hand on a laser, and that made a pipe organ sound. And then you touch your hand on another laser, and that made another sound. And man, I'll be honest, after that conversation in preparation for Christmas at a regional church was one of the reasons, and then was one of the reasons I ended up tapping out about a month before Christmas. And I just said, look, you guys have vision for this. I think it's time for us to pursue our callings in different directions. And so, so this conversation, and a lot of that, that was all last minute, and it had to be big and it had to be complicated. And I just disagreed, and I didn't want to have the incurred expense of my time, my family, my Christmas in order to see something big and complicated that I thought might even miss. So if you've ever been burned out at Christmas, I have both been the perpetrator and I've also been burned out at Christmas. So the recipient and the cause at times in church ministry, which is why I think it's super important that we're talking about this right now.
Yeah, that's actually exactly why we're having this conversation. And maybe many people hearing the subject, hearing us say, let's talk about Christmas in July. If you're here and you're like, why are we doing this? Why plan for Christmas in July? I think a lot of churches, they'll start in October, and that's actually pretty good for comparatively, because some are in November or maybe start of December. But it can be even easier and more efficient. And because the main thing is, like you said, Jason, you can plan ahead or you can burn out people. You talk about that a lot. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Well, I mean, just that. I think the story I was sharing, the anecdote there of the individual who I wanted to celebrate in front of others, I just pointed and said, "Hey, just everybody go say thank you. Look at all this cool stuff they put together." And afterwards, they were not happy. And don't ever do that to me again. And because they didn't want credit, because they thought this is so far below what I could have done had I actually been in charge of planning this event. And I realized, man, there was a miss there in my own leadership where I didn't have enough on-ramp for that individual to set them up for success, to build teams, to involve others. You can plan ahead or you can burn out people. And I think that really falls, Andrew, in the creative realm, right? The further out you can plan. Also, here's the other side of that coin. That's the negative way of saying it. Here's the positive way of saying it. The further out you plan, if you plan ahead, you can involve people. You can empower people. You can create an opportunity to create ownership with people where most people will raise their hand and say, I want to change the world, but the leaders just aren't giving them enough time to do it. So what if we did plan ahead in enough time where those people could give of their time on their own time, schedule appropriately, serve well, and really create something awesome?
Yeah, that's a habit and a piece of culture I've picked up with my time here at ArtSpeak, and I've learned from you both, and I'm so thankful for it. It's actually been healing in my own life, planning ahead so you don't burn out people. And I think when people hear that, they're like, oh, well, I want to still remain flexible. I like, maybe you're a spirit-driven church. Hopefully we all are in some way, but you want to be spirit driven and like, oh, I'm going this way now. All of a sudden, there's still room for that when you plan ahead. I think if you're watching this, stick around. You'll see there's just some light kind of checklist things that'll get you into the space where you can still be flexible, you can still pivot, but you can be a lot healthier and more effective, and also support. And this is a value I love about ArtSpeak. It's all about people. Kirk, I know that's been a super important value to all of us, but that you've helped instill in the team. What are some ways that you think people can instill that value when they start to plan ahead for Christmas?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, we talked about the burnout factor here, and that's certainly true. I think there's the further back you're able to start planning, I think that gives you several things that are key here. One, you enable those creatives to really sink their teeth into this project and give it their best, like has already been mentioned. And you're protecting their energy. You're saying this isn't just an event to reach the outsiders. You're saying, hey, this can be an event for you also. And I think that's a key factor that churches often struggle with, that balance. Like, yes, we want to reach the lost, but we already have reached some. And so we want to take care of them too. And Christmas can be a special time for them too, if we will plan ahead and create that. So I think there's a couple other things that I would want to mention. One, there's a stewardship issue here. If you just want to talk about money, like when you have to order things rush or plan things at the last minute, you're going to spend exponentially more money on that. And so, if you need to, if you're a church creative and you're working with your church and trying to explain why it's important to start planning this earlier, that may be a card in your pocket that you can play. It's going to cost more money if we don't start planning now. I think third, you have more options. Yeah. When you start planning way ahead, there's way more strategy you can bake into this thing if you can start asking those questions now and figuring out what are the outcomes that we want. And we'll get into that more in a minute. But if you are planning ahead, then you can consider all of the people involved. You can consider the people that you want to reach and what they need and how you can serve them best. you can consider the people you already have in your church, the people that you have on your team working alongside you. You can consider yourself. If you are a pastor or a creative, you can consider, what do you need in this process, and you can bake all of that value in your plans
into a beautiful Christmas fruitcake. Yeah,
that's right.
Just kind of keep it on brand for Christmas. Yeah, I can move on, but I just love when you say that. It reminds me of something you frequently say, that and like we talk about win-win-win, like the people we're serving are people, the people on our team are people, and I'm a people. And people, it's all about people. So that doesn't mean neglecting ourselves, neglecting our team, neglecting those we're serving. They're all important. They can all be healthy and they can all be reached. So we're about to dive in to ways you can do that for Christmas with the formula for a Merry Christmas. It may not be that scientific or mathematical. X plus Y gets you this result, but we think it's going to be the formula that will get you the closest to an effective and healthy Christmas. And that all starts with a key mindset shift that I know, especially Jason, you're passionate about. I love this. Tell us a little bit about this mindset shift.
The mindset shift is just not just thinking about Christmas alone, but thinking about what comes after Christmas. I think sometimes we have big event culture in the church where we're thinking about, man, we've got to ramp up, we've got to do this big, cool thing. And then afterwards, there's this letdown. We don't tell the stories out. Think about what's coming after this. So specifically, New Year's is coming after it. I think, hear me. I love innovation. So if your team wants to do something super innovative for Christmas, you can also apply this conversation to Easter or any big outreach event that you do. Do something innovative, great. But think about what's coming next. Both celebrating the people. There's a huge opportunity to celebrate the people that were involved. That's something that has a longer shelf life than I think we in the church world give it credit for. You can continue to celebrate what happened at Christmas for the next several weeks. But even more so, the beginning of the year. Think about this, every ministry, every store, everybody is advertising for Christmas. It's a big deal. I love Christmas. It's a big deal to my family. I would rather, though, give less of my time at Christmas and more of my time in the new year. For some reason, we've shifted that in the church world where we have this huge ramp up and it's so busy. Every Christmas party, all the Christmas parties, all of the school stuff, all of the office stuff, all of the community stuff, busy. And now church stuff on top of all that. And we're asking for this huge give. And then we're going to also say to our marketing department, spend money. And now you're competing again with every store, every marketing campaign in town to get people's attention when they're already busy. What is everyone doing after Christmas? They're sitting back. And if you're at Bria's house, she's drinking wassail still, leftover wassail, or they're just sitting around, they're watching movies or they're watching TV, they're spending quality family time. It is a low time of involvement. It's also a low time of marketing spend. So I don't know what the number would be, 4x, 5x, 10x your marketing reach by taking that money and not just spending it on Christmas, spend it on New Year's, spend it on that first couple of weeks and what you're going to be talking about. We had one guy when we were church planting who Googled on New Year's Eve. He Googled life change because he was so tired of his life. And our church, that was our tagline, lives changed. And so we popped up and he joined us on New Year's morning and became a part. I still have a relationship with him today, 10 years later. He, began to experience life change by following Jesus. All started with him searching for lives changed on New Year's Eve because he was tired, ready to start the new year. So I just think there's a huge opportunity when it comes to Christmas to think about what comes right after it.
So I think that the challenge there, I think, as you start to plan Christmas, is if you're starting early, you have a chance to be more strategic and ask those questions like, what is the end result we're going for? And think beyond, we just want a big event and get as many people as we can. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's your strategy. But maybe there's an opportunity by thinking about it now to try different things so that you're not competing with the church down the street. You're doing something different, maybe reaching a different audience that they're not reaching. Maybe you're drawing this line between, I'm going to connect with you now so that you're going to come back in January and you're going to see your life changed. And that may change what you plan.
Yeah. And what this reminds me of too is something I've heard you say as well, Jason, is people are going to show up to Christmas. Like there's going to be more people. Like Christmas, Easter, those are going to be high attendance days, basically no matter what at your church. Like if you're on, a church that has weekly Sunday rhythm or any sort of rhythm, and Christmas is going to be a part of that rhythm, like people are going to invite people are going to show up. Definitely want to, take the intentionality to empower people to invite, to create first-time opportunities for people. But people are interested in church around Christmas and Easter. So do we need as much budget to be effective? Maybe, maybe not. And it is cool to make great family memories when people show up. I think that can help with retention. But also, what comes after Christmas? What are you calling people to? I've heard you say things, and I take this mindset like, hey, like you're here on Christmas, great. If you give us these next 4 weeks at the start of your year, this is where you'll be at the end of that. So what are you dreaming and planning for people? And how are you going to invest in that with your resources? So that's what we're about to jump into, the formula for Merry Christmas. It's going to incorporate not just Christmas, but also prepare you to make it a Happy New Year. So I'm super excited about this, and this, like, feel free to take a screenshot, take notes. Love that, whether you're watching live or the replay. But we do have this PDF version of it. We have a long one for digital devices. So if you want to get this on all your teams, iPads or phones or computer, whatever, that's nice. Or we do have a multi-page version. You can print it out, hang it up in your church office. You'll know everyone will be on the same page. This is where we're at. This is what we got to focus on this month. So it's a great tool to keep you and your team on track, as well as has a few resources on there that you can take into, like our Church Creative Works library. We have a bunch of free resources on our Christmas landing page. It's like a little Christmas hub of resources, a lot of free gifts from Art Speak Santa to you guys. So make sure to check that out. And if you're watching the replay, we will have a link to download this as well. But yeah, no worries for our note takers if you can't get everything on that screen. We do have a PDF version. So we're just going to take this month by month and talk a little bit about each item. So this is, if you have the PDF, you're rewatching this and you're wondering what to do. Here, we're just going to give you a little bit of context about what to do, and then we'll get some question and answer at the end. So if you haven't already, make sure to ask some questions. So July, that's the month we're in now. What should people be doing in July? And I think this is actually something I'm really happy that we're communicating on, because when I think about starting planning for something 6 months out, I'm like, how could I do that? And actually, like, I know people talk about stuff 6 months out, but then it's like you get 3 months out, and that's when the actual planning starts. Like, okay, now we're actually going to do these things. But if you follow this rhythm, you can be in a 6-month rhythm that what you talk about in July actually can lead to implementation in November and December. So we think you should plan and hold something called an expansion meeting. That's a habit we have here at ArchSpeak, expansion and contraction. And I think many teams, many churches that I've been a part of, they're good at one of these things. You're good at expansion. Here's all the ideas. Maybe you've been a part of a team like this. Here's all the ideas. I don't know what we're going to do. Let's just keep adding on more and more ideas. Or you might be good at the contraction. We're only doing this one idea. Pastor said this one idea, or this leader said this one idea. We're just going to do that. You need both. You can expand, but then at some point, some parameter, and we suggest the one that we have on the timeline here, you'll contract and make a decision. And guess what? If it's not the most effective thing, that's okay, because all any of this is really is test, do more of what works, less of what doesn't. So July, or if you're watching this later, you're like watching this in October and you're like, oh man, what do I do? I still think you can, kind of fit all these into your timeline, just kind of smush a little bit down. Obviously, you have more time if you have more months, but do these steps in this order. You can do it if you do an expansion meeting this week, doing the August stuff next week, whatever. So that said, Kirk, Jason, what goes into doing like a good expansion meeting?
So I'm personally much better at the expansion than the contraction. So I love this part. And and I think the key thing to know about expansion is that this is a no filter zone. That is to say, what trips us up in expansion is that self-filtering or that other filtering where we want, as soon as an idea comes out, we're already evaluating, is that a good idea or a bad idea, or why wouldn't that work? And you want to turn that off. It can be hard, especially if your strength is in the contraction part. You're going to be immediately identifying the reasons why that idea is not going to work out. You're going to get to that later. In expansion, you want to get as many ideas on the board, so to speak, literally or figuratively, as you can. Because the reality is, yeah, most of them are going to be bad ideas, or at least impractical. But maybe in the process of that unfiltered expansion, you're going to find some great ideas or some combination of ideas that are genius.
Yeah. And I like that you said, like, just put everything on the board here. And that's what I would encourage. If you guys have any different thoughts, feel free to say. But for July, make this even less about, like, maybe the theme for Christmas does come up, but you'll see in August, we do have a specific session for your sermon, like, series or your sermon for that day and the theme. But use July to bring people from different ministries together. Maybe they're not even normally, if you haven't done this before, part of like sermon prep or like planning ahead for big things like this. This is your opportunity to make sure everyone on your team feels involved, bringing together the leaders of your different teams or departments, and lead an expansion meeting where you're getting stuff on the board. What should we do for Christmas? Just use some very broad questions. And that's where you get a bunch of things ranging from sermon theme to just, I would lean more towards practical things like, yeah, we'll do a petting zoo, or we'll do this, or whatever kind of the thing is, or we'll partner with this local business or charity, or maybe someone on your team has a connection to like a local, nonprofit, and they're like, let's partner to give all of our tithes from that day to that nonprofit. Whatever it is, this is the time to ideate, and then next month you'll contract on these things. So going into August, you will be contracting on the stuff you talked about in July, but this is also where you can do an expansion meeting. And this might be with that same group of people. It might be with maybe just your, if you have a teaching team. If you don't, I would highly encourage creating a teaching team of trusted people. Teaching is better as a team than just solo. But get your teaching team, get maybe your creative leads or your creative department, and get everyone together to ideate on the messaging and visuals for Christmas, but also for January. Craig, Jason, is there anything that comes to mind when you're thinking about like teaching for December and for January that you would kind of give direction on there?
I think the one thing that jumps in my mind, Andrew, is just how, it's our communication triangle. We've talked a lot about that in the community as well, is try to think about what people are already thinking about. And so even when you're planning your stuff, do we do a petting zoo? Do we do Christmas lights? Do we do Christmas lights and fireworks? By the way, those are two things that don't sound like they go together, but are pretty awesome. So together, what are we going to do? What big thing are we going to do? Well, one, think about what people are already thinking about. What do they want pre-Christmas? They want family stuff. They want to have the warm, fuzzy feels. They want to have pictures. You mentioned a photo booth. They want the family portrait. If you can help make it easier, they're driving around looking for Christmas lights. There's websites up in your city that talk about then this house, then this house. If you want to do, so people are thinking about that kind of thing. And if you find a way that you can help serve what people are already thinking about, awesome. Same after Christmas. What are they thinking about? It's a new calendar. It's a brand new day. And I know sometimes in the church world, we like to say, oh, there's no such, it's not about New Year's resolutions. It's about life change. Okay, fine. Call it whatever you want. People are thinking about a life change. So it's a time to market. Like, this is a chance to reset your life, a brand new day, a vision for church and life and how it works together. And when you start teaching on the things that come alongside just what people are already thinking about and help them. Now your sermon series isn't about you and even the things it's about helping them live the life that they were already hoping to live.
Yeah, that makes me think of things of like leading them into like a healthy habits series or something that'll create connections. There's a lot of, and even within that, there's a lot of different angles you could take, and then a lot of different imagery that could come to mind, a lot of fun things. You don't have to do the same thing every year. You could if you want. But either way, I think there's a lot of space for the teaching to set a direction and let the creative team kind of have fun and flesh it out and make it be something that helps reach more people. So once you have your, hopefully you've contracted in August, like, hey, we're going to do petting zoo and fireworks far away from each other and a light show or something. And then in August, you're thinking about your sermon series, stuff like that. You're also setting the budget that people will be using for the different things. So if you have that petting zoo, that takes budget, right? If you have a unique sermon element during the service, that takes some budget. If you want to market to people about your services, whether on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, out of home advertising, you're in movie theaters, I don't know. That takes budget as well. So set that budget in August so that way the rest of the year, your team knows what they're using. It's not a question. And if anything, you could add more to it later on. But at least you have that budget set and people can run with it. Going into September, this is when you're going to want to lock in a lot of things. We have some things there on the list, but Kirk, Jason, is there anything that comes to mind where you're like, churches maybe forget to lock in certain things in time for Christmas? Or just some things that should be top of mind to lock in?
Well, I mean, Kirk already mentioned print stuff. I mean, I've been on staff at churches that waited, and the last design, they didn't get the designer. And this is not to the creative's fault, right? Didn't get the final edited copy until the rush order was like, please, I'm begging you, can you rush order this? And so you're going to pay at least double to 4 times as much for that. Again, myself included, just even having the planning session. What are the things we could offer? Are there going to be snacks? Is there going to be decor? Is there going to be did we even plan what we're going to do in enough time to think through some of those details that make it special, that create the opportunity for the photo pick to be just right? And okay, we got the photo pick. How are the people going to get the pick afterwards? Is it going to be posted, or is it going to be emailed? Just thinking through, providing the time to plan it well. Again, this isn't just so that the church can grow, but so that the person who experienced whatever it is you end up doing had a good time experiencing it. Their experience was seamless. That takes planning. That takes coordination.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where you get to Christmas week, you're like, oh, I wish we confirmed this, or it's like the week before. And yeah, you're trying to how do people get those pictures? I know we've been talking about doing a photo booth, but we have a photographer. How are they going to get off of that SD card into the hands of people? What's the most effective way? I'm a fan of putting them all on Facebook album. And that's like my highest reaching post of the year. That's just me. But lock in things like dates, reservations, rentals, your messaging and visual identity for the sermon series for December and January, because that will allow for things like locking in print orders. Like end of October and beyond, if you order something like that, it could be at least a higher fee, or sometimes I've seen churches they're ordering 6 weeks out and it's still, they're crossing their fingers hoping it's going to show up in time for Christmas Day. So you do want to lock in these things in September ideally, or at least if you're aiming for September and you fall in October, that's great too, but you're going to be way farther ahead and not losing out as much. I think Kirk wants to say something.
I was just going to say, people's a big one. You may have people on your team, your volunteer team, or even your staff that you're counting on, but they're making their plans for their Christmas, and they might be planning on traveling. So you want to lock this in so that you know that they're actually going to be there or not as early as possible. But that photographer, you're not even going to have pictures to get off the card if they're on a vacation. And you're asking them the week before Christmas, hey, could you come take some photos? That's definitely never, ever happened to me.
I think one thing, Andrew, about that is, and this would be a caveat to people are going to attend Christmas. So I don't want to go back too far, but if you're a brand new church, you have to remember that you're no one's tradition yet. You're not grandma's church yet. And maybe you are. We had a few grandmas at our church plant who, but you're not the tradition yet, which gives you an opportunity to establish what it is that you do want to do and the kinds of things you do want to offer. But it also needs to set some of that. We didn't have the planning done, and we didn't so we were in a portable space. We ended up doing an Eve of Christmas Eve service. And that's what we have, Eve of Christmas Eve. And it was on a Friday night. The reason it was on a Friday night was because I couldn't get our portable space on a Saturday. And my entire team had already decided they're not coming on Sunday. They're not going to be. Sunday was our first Sunday, was Christmas morning. And most of my volunteer team had already planned to be somewhere else on Christmas. So I don't have a team to set up. I can't set up the day before. We ended up doing a Friday night service, the eve of Christmas Eve, which was kind of fun because that was something new no one else in the community was doing. We reached people that no one else could have reached during that Friday night service. But it you know, just setting in mind that you're not the tradition yet plays into what Kirk's saying about people's schedules. They may not have plan. If you plan further enough ahead and you're saying, hey, I know that you always go, you want to do something special on Christmas. Here's when we could use your help if you want to be a part of this. But you're asking in July, August, September. That's a lot different than the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And you also, there's mentioned in the chat, like what kind of witnesses, 2 vendors and employees, and really 2 volunteers. Like, what do you want volunteers telling their family members? Oh, I know we were going to spend this holiday together, but you're going to have less time with me because my church is now asking me to do this. And those are the people you probably want them to reach, right? Like, you want them to invite those family members to church. So you don't want your church to be something that's pulling away from family time. You want it to be supporting and empowering it. So when it's part of people's plans, and that's why I say you can plan ahead or burn out people. There's a lot of people you can burn out. It's not just your staff. It could be volunteers. It could be people that you want to attend weekly, and they're like, no, I need to have time with my family. It is important. It's a value of the church. So planning this far out is a great way to ensure that happens. The other thing in September that you can expand on is a marketing campaign. So this is separate from maybe you have some great things in place already, like, hey, we're going to have fireworks, we're going to have Pansy, whatever. Those are things that could be part of the marketing. I love to talk about things that what I call apparent value, because that'll kind of be a hook for people. But this is, how are you going to communicate that? Are you going to be doing like Facebook ads, out of home? How are you going to empower your congregation to go out and reach the community? Kirk, Jason, what are some good ways to foster those marketing conversations on a church team?
I think if you get your team excited about an idea, then they'll naturally be motivated for that. There won't be an awkward conversation at that point. Instead of, hey, go invite everybody you know to our Christmas event, please. That's different than, oh yeah, we're all on board. We were part of the ideation for this. We're excited about it. Mm-hmm. They're going to be thinking of things proactively before you even ask them.
That plays back into the planning ahead. You know, if you can get people's word of mouth to say, this is something we are doing, this is something I'm a part of, rather than this is something my church is doing, and like a forced obligational invite versus we are a part of this. But that takes time, that takes planning, that does take building it with them, right? It's a lot easier to get somebody to invite somebody to something that they built, that they're excited about, that they partnered with, than just my next idea. Hey, invite everybody to this cool thing I thought of.
Yeah, creating opportunities for buy-in, being a part of it, as well as something, Kirk, when you said, like, yeah, please come to this thing, everybody, and please, or telling your congregation, invite everybody you know. Well, what if we say invite 5 people you know? Or that's probably going to be a lot more than if you just said everybody, because usually that's 0 for a lot of people. But if you have a specific action for your congregation, that's kind of what you're thinking through with this expansion. What specific actions do we want our team to take that will reach people, for volunteers, for our congregation? When are we going to roll this out in services? What are we going to use as the hook to get people interested and wanting to learn more? We have a Art Speaking University in the community, and it'll be on our YouTube, about marketing funnels. How are you going to get people through each stage of that funnel? That could be a good diagram to have, like on a whiteboard or something, while you're talking through ideation for this. But yes, enabling people to have buy-in, and then in the next month in October, contracting on, okay, yep, we're going to run Facebook ads from this time to this time. We're going to have this billboard up from this time to this time. We're going to tell the congregation on this Sunday to take this action over the next week. Maybe even have, each Sunday to Sunday different actions they can take. Something else that just comes to mind for me is not everyone attends every Sunday. Statistically, I think it's like once every other week, optimistically, or maybe once every 3 weeks that people are there in person on a Sunday. So take that into consideration for whatever you're doing to empower people in your congregation to attend. But also something in October that might be a little surprising to see on here. It'll be on the PDF is expansion for Easter. You are now 6 months out from Easter. And if you notice, we started 6 months out for Christmas. What are some ways that you think people could balance planning for Easter while still in, they're like a month away from implementing for Christmas? They haven't even, like most churches would be like, why are you talking to me about Easter in October?
Yeah. Well, the good news is, at least for me, maybe not for everybody, but that expansion meeting is fun. It's an easy ask. And so if you can get people just to come together and start having those ideas, and you're able to identify then, hey, if there's something that we all got excited about in the expansion meeting that's going to take a lot of extra planning, we can go ahead and make a few phone calls now so that those can become a possibility in Easter. And just by loading that in people's brains ahead of time means that you've now activated their reticular activating system in their brain, and they're going to be thinking about those ideas and thinking about opportunities, and that's going to give you a big head start without asking for too much time and energy from them in the meantime while they've got other stuff they're focused on.
Yeah, I'd say if you're following this formula for Christmas and you follow it for Easter as well, that is what's going to enable you to do this. Because in October, if you're just having an expansion meeting, hey, do we want to have, again, maybe a petting zoo? Do we want to have a person in an Easter bunny costume? Whatever. What are the kind of the big fun things? And then in November, December, you're thinking about sermon and stuff like that. That'll enable you at the start of the year to lock in all the things we just talked about that you locked in for Christmas, for Easter. And again, I've seen plenty of churches for Christmas, like 6 to 8 weeks out, trying to lock some stuff in. And they're like, oh, I hope it gets here in time. So this is a way to take that stress off and take it one step at a time. So October, start planning, just start expanding for Easter and follow this, kind of restart this process for Easter, and you'll be on a great track. I'll also be honest, I see most churches taking action on this type of stuff for Easter mainly in January, but you are trying to cram like all these 6 month things into 3 months. That isn't necessarily the worst thing. Like I said, like if you're starting this process late for Christmas, like that can just be reality. It's not like you failed or something. We're not trying to like keep pressure or stress on. We're saying if you start in October, you'll have a lot less stress and a lot more effectiveness and health. So I'm going to try to quickly get us through November and December so we can get to questions here. Just in November, I'd love to hear from you guys because this is where you implement the marketing. Go ahead, start running the campaigns probably after Thanksgiving, I would say, for Christmas. But maybe you even have like a holiday kind of slate that includes Thanksgiving in that holiday slate. You're advertising the holidays. However you're doing it, what are some ways you guys have seen churches, what are some cool marketing things, whether internal or external, that churches have done to effectively reach people for Christmas or for the holiday season?
It's so simple, and it's so, and many churches are already doing this in some way, shape, or form. But just having, we always had invite cards, and print's not dead. Print still can function, especially when there's a personal connection attached to it, because it's just easier for people, instead of trying to verbally communicate, hey, would you come to this thing? Rather, hey, here's this thing. Here's all the information about it. I don't have to tell you that verbally and let you forget about it. No. But then you can hand that over. So simple, but effective.
Yeah, I think I love that. And we've seen big events draw big crowds, whether that was Easter or Christmas, light shows. And Grinch costumes and all the things. I think so. I think there's one way to answer that, Andrew, in that category, and like mass marketing. I'm a fan. Let's just get the word out in as many ways as possible. I also think there's special times in the calendar where our entire culture is very receptive to an invitation from a friend to Jesus, or to investigate who he is more. So I've seen others just inviting their friends to read one of his biographies with him. And at the Christmas season, when it's hectic and it's busy, we're not asking for something big or something more from the people, but maybe even something smaller, something slower, something more intimate, and in a way that says, let's read through one of the Gospels, one of the biographies of Jesus, and talk about what he said. Here's where the Christmas story started. And so I'd be happy at some point, Andrew, if there was interest to do kind of a spin-off. It wouldn't be Christmassy, but it would be Jesus-y. That's an adjective, right? So we could do that in the community, and have a Zoom call for those that are interested. Just talk about having conversations, personal conversations around the person of Jesus and his words and his ways, and how to do that. But I think, again, Easter, Christmas, culturally, our whole world is talking about that. Our culture is talking about that. People's receptivity to those invitations, I think, is at an elevated level. They are more receptive to saying, yeah, I would love to know the real reason behind the season.
Yeah. So some top of mind things like that reminds me of is for the people that maybe Christmas, like they know it's Christmas, they know it's Easter, but they have objections. What are some common objections that people would have to attending these services? It's going to feel weird. What am I going to feel called out? What's it going to be like when I come? So make sure your website is set up to overcome those objections. Make sure your landing page, they have a landing page specific for these services that will answer common objections or frequently asked questions. It's also a hook you could lead if you're doing any social ads. We love the selfie ad. That's a very cheap way people can do it. We have a free PDF that people can use. That's on our website. It's in our resource section. It's also in the community, how you can run your own selfie ads just with a selfie video with maybe your pastor or some other staff member or key volunteer. One other thing I'd say too in your marketing communications, lead with the apparent value. I mentioned that a little bit ago. So like if you are going to have, donuts, Christmas cookies, something fun for the kids, family experience, petting zoo, light show, whatever, lead with that. Not maybe in every single communication, but you can have ads that lead with that. You can have ads that lead with the felt need that you're addressing with your sermon series. You can have ads that lead with the hook. Those can all exist in the same ecosystem. If you're working with us, we love to do stuff like that and do retargeting based off of it. But even if you're trying to do it yourself, these are all just things you can run with broad targeting, very simple. We have some how-to videos in the community, or if you want to reach out to us, we're happy to help. But you can do it yourself and get people to your services with these tools and keep it simple. But lead with the apparent value in some of those communications at least, because maybe, again, the felt need that we've all been talking about here, having time with family. Well, let's show people how they're going to have some great family memories, and that'll be their first step into this marketing funnel that leads to life transformation and engagement in community. So I'd say lead with that and a lot of your marketing communications. And we're going to get to Q&A pretty quick here. December and January, that's all basically doing the stuff. You're doing the Christmas services, and you're hopefully launching as well a retention marketing campaign, because we've talked about this in other ones. Like, a lot of businesses have an abandoned cart flow. Like if people have stuff in their cart and then they jump off, but they get an email later like, oh, you left something here. People, they're putting some stuff in the cart for Christmas. They're coming to church, but are they going to come back? What's going to keep them coming back? So hopefully you've thought through that with your January series stuff, but also you have a specific action step in the services. You have some ad campaigns scheduled already to run. Just the last question I'd love to ask you guys, and then we can jump in the Q&A, is one thing we suggest is doing an after action review in January of the holiday season. Maybe it's in the middle of this new January series. Maybe you wait till the end of it. I would love to see it, at least after the first Sunday of that January series, so you can see how successful were our efforts of getting people from Christmas to this, or maybe after the first two, because statistically not everyone comes on every Sunday. Kirk, Jason, what do you think goes into a good after action review?
After action reviews can be really simple. It sounds kind of scary. The terminology comes from the military. But it's basically just taking the intentional time after you've done something, especially something this big that you've spent money on, you spent team energy on, to come back afterwards and make sure we've done a thoughtful review and say, what went well, what didn't, what can we do different next time? Just an intentional process of reflection so that you can keep getting better at what you actually wanted to do. To take that time and analyze what was our goal and how close did we get? Did we make progress there, or did it go a different direction? And how do we adjust for next time?
For sure. Yeah, you don't have to make it more complicated than that. Like, just stick to those things. And next time, if you want to ask more questions, then you have a strong basis. So love this discussion. We have a lot of questions in the Q&A and not a lot of time. So I'd love to get to two of them at least. And then we'll follow up on social media and elsewhere with answers to the other questions. So there's some great stuff here. We're just going to look at the top upvoted questions, both by anonymous. Watch out. What are some unique deliverables a church can do for Christmas to reach people pre-Christmas and post-Christmas?
Unique deliverables. If we're just talking about unique things that churches can do, this is, I think, a real opportunity for planning ahead, that you can think of these different kinds of ideas. Because many of the things that churches do, many churches have done and will do every single year. But what if you did something different? What if it was a little further away from Christmas? What if you went, instead of inviting people in, you went out? What if there was community service events that you could do? What if, I know one thing we did at our church, Jason, which I loved, was we brought in a couple, and they didn't know this was going to happen, but we had gifts all ready for them, and we just showered them with gifts for them and their kids. And, I don't know if that's what we mean by deliverables here, but
it's technically delivering some great gifts there.
Yeah.
I think that, Kirk mentioned a good one, probably the easiest turnaround as far as a deliverable, a print deliverable would be that invite card, empowering people to talk about what they're doing. It's a business card size. It goes in your wallet, fits in a purse, so people can carry it with them, so that when a conversation comes up in the weeks prior, they could invite people to Christmas. I would just say all the things that Kirk just mentioned. I would say just make it special. Make it special. Do special things for people. Make it special for people, whether it's an overt, huge planned event or a huge planned blessing for somebody. People love being a part of that. I've seen it effective just going out into the public with a budget and doing acts of kindness and videoing that and telling that story. There are lots of ways to engage people around, through generosity, through family time, through serving together. My kids, I know it's July, it's not Christmas, but they're out serving right now. They love doing it with their youth group today. Like literally they are downtown painting and cleaning and doing yard work. So there's just a lot of opportunities to get outside of the campus, or if you like us, we didn't have a campus, but I think make it special. Make it special for you. Make it special for those that are doing it. Make it special for the community in which you serve.
Yeah. One thing that makes me think of too is, I'll just, because I want to get to this other question. The thing I would say, because those are some like great ideation, I would say just like, if you want an answer for as far as like, here's some deliverables you should have, I would say there's essential deliverables, and then the uniqueness comes from the opportunity that presents itself in your context. So essential deliverables, have the invite cards, have next steps at each service that maybe are empowered by physical deliverables, especially so like in Christmas, or if it's like a commitment card, like for that January series, it's based around the habits you're calling people to or whatever. Maybe it's a 21-day reading plan. A lot of churches do that, but it can be hard to get that into people's hands. So having a physical print, maybe with a QR code or something to get in people's hands. And I would say another essential deliverable would be the selfie Facebook ad, or just any kind of Facebook ad. Like I would at minimum put a little bit of budget into running that for sure, both before and after Christmas, and base it around the messaging for each of those series. Last question, and then we're going to wrap up here. How can a small church with a small budget make its Christmas service epic?
See, I think that's where you have to define for you and your church, what is epic? Is that a bunch of people there that you've never met before? It could be. Maybe that's what you need. Or maybe it's one life that is touched and changed and connected. So your Christmas service, but create it within your budget, because it's not about budget. And of course, the further out you plan, the more opportunity you have to do something epic without much budget. But I think this could look so many different ways. And maybe it's a matter of, again, I think there's opportunities for churches to do really unique things that are not normal Christmas services. I don't know, Jason, I'm thinking about the time that we as a church, there was someone in our church who had need, and we declared an extreme home makeover, and we organized a bunch of people and got some donations, and we went out and we spent like a day and like painted and replaced carpet and all kinds. That's crazy.
I got trouble for that one because I didn't plan on 5 days. I planned on 2 days, and it just kept on in front of us. But that was seriously one of the most epic things that we've ever done. I would be like, somebody would call me from the work site, and they'd say, "Hey, I just found all of these light plugs are burning. They were burnt. Like her electrical, the whole house is terrible." And then I'd hang up, and the phone would ring, and it'd be an electrician. "Hey, I heard there's a need. Can I?" And I remember one time, like, "What are we gonna do for lunch?" It's on day 3, and all of a sudden, I'm in a cafe, and the guy's like, "Hey, I got all these extra sandwiches. Do you guys want?" I mean, it felt very supernatural, that specific one. We should do a whole nother one just about random act about how to be generous in a community. But I think make it special for your people. You can establish a tradition. You can, communion is really simple when you think about it. It has 2 elements, and yet it has transcended for thousands of years. And in almost every expression of his church on the planet still has this sacrament in one form or another. And because of why? Because of its epicness, or because of its simplicity. And so I just wonder if there's a way for you to allow a new tradition or an old tradition done small, but done intimately and well and simply. Now all of a sudden it becomes the thing that you guys do. We do this thing that after, maybe it's wassail. At the end of your service, you get Bria. She hit up Bria in the community. She's got a recipe, and you just make a giant pot of wassail, and then that just becomes the epic thing that you guys do every year. Or maybe it is communion. That would have been the spiritual way to land the plane. But thank you guys. Andrew, thanks for putting this together, and jingle all the way to everybody. And man, this is a great conversation. It's fun.
Yeah. I raise a glass of wassail to you two. Thank you for being a part. I got a couple of resources for you that are watching. So Kirk and Jason, thank you. And then just a couple of resources I want to tell everyone about tomorrow for all our designer friends. So if you are at a church and you have designers, or you are here and you are a designer, we have Ashley Almer leading us in a discussion about Illustrator character design. If you want to make these cool little illustrations, you want to have some dope Christmas graphics, this is the place to get your designer to, or to get yourself to. It's free to be a part. We'll have a link in the chat. We'll also have that on our social, so go check out our stories, or go to Ashley's Instagram, and it's on there too. But come be a part of that tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, you'll meet a ton of really cool designer friends. It's a great time. Also, if you're not already, I mentioned at the start, join the ArtSpeak Creative community. we have a special section. All this stuff, you're like, wow, this all sounds great. I'm not sure how we're going to do all that. Even with all that context, we want to journey alongside you and others who are doing this as well. So join the ArtSpeak Creative community, community.artspeakcreative.com. I can remember URLs. It's a Christmas miracle. There's also a URL wherever you're watching this in the description. We have a special set aside space for resources, communication, and meetings about journeying to Christmas together. So each of those months, we will be doing different things to contribute to the theme for that month. So if you want to stay on track and you want to do it with others, as well as with our team, that's one way to do it. Also, if you just want help with Christmas, go to artspeakcreative.com/Christmas in July, also linked in the description wherever you're watching this. That's our hub for all of our Christmas resources. We have a ton of free resources there that will make your Christmas awesome. But also at the bottom, there is a opportunity where you can just put your name and email. And if you want to talk to us about our services, or just you want to strategize for 30 minutes, one of our strategists will jump on a call with you for free for 30 minutes to talk strategy for all things Christmas or whatever else you have going on in your church. So go check it out. It'll be awesome. Otherwise, yeah, thank you everybody for being a part. Loved this conversation. We want to keep it going. So go check out the community, and we'll see you there. Thanks everybody.